Hello my dear friends, I welcome you warmly to this new class, and today we are almost reaching the end of this second lesson, and we were talking about different types of sectors. We said based on the sectors, whether it is organized or unorganized, we can divide them. You can say organized sector and unorganized sector. Then again we said based on the ownership, we can say public or private. So public means owner is government, private means the owner is the private people. So based on the ownership, in our country we know there are so many organizations are there or establishments are there which are owned by the government. Some of them government is the owner, some of them private individuals are the owners. So let us see them in detail. So we divide them based on the ownership, and we know most of the big establishments like railways, roads, all those things are owned by the government, because it needs such a huge amount to start a railway or to start road, construct roads throughout the country. So private people may not be able to do it because it needs such a huge amount. Private people may not have so much money. Therefore, most of those important things which are needed, which are common and which are essential for the public people, are all done by the government. That means they are all in the public sector. Then some examples we know. For example, railways, post office and so on. All these are government or public enterprises. So they are all working in the public sector, government, railways and so on. Then for example, the private sector, some of the companies owned by the individuals like Tata. Tata is a very famous private company in our country. They have so many products, vehicles they produce, and so many, and they have another famous company called Tata Iron and Steel Company Limited. It is called in short form TISCO. TISCO is a private company. Tata Iron and Steel Company. Then we know Reliance Industries Limited, and they also have got a lot of establishments. They have a lot of mobile services, other services and so on. So all these are done by private people. Reliance India Limited, RIL. Then, so to get services we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. So remember, if you want to get the benefit of this public company, we need to pay very little, not much. But if you want to get service from this private company, then the charge will be high. You know, if you travel by a government bus and if you travel by a private bus, the private bus charge will be always high. So the people, because these private people, they are starting this industry or sector not for mainly for service. Their main purpose is to get profit. Their main purpose is to earn maximum income, and therefore they are not going to do much charity works. They will provide good service and they will charge you also very high. But on the other hand, in the public service or government service, we know the service may not be up to the mark. The places may be dirty, and there may not be cleanings, the staff may be absent and so on. Those things are there. But the charge will be less. The government has got every intention to provide good service, and if we get bad service, it is because of the staff. The staff may not be regular, or they may not be working hard, or they may not be regular, and so on. That is the reason why in public sectors we find the places are dirty, the buildings are dirty, offices are dirty, the officers are not there, and so on. All these things happen. So government is raising money through taxes and other ways to meet the expenses. So we said the public sector undertakings are very large. It needs lot of capital, it needs lot of money to begin this work. And how does government get this money to start all this work? Because we are all paying tax to the government in different ways. If you buy even a 1 rupee sweet or 1 rupee chewing gum, if you buy, it will be written there. If you look nicely, you will find maximum MRP, maximum retail price 1 rupee, inclusive of all taxes. It will be written there, inclusive of all taxes. So even for that 1 rupee sweet, you are paying tax. The company is not paying tax. Company is paying tax to the government, and company is collecting money from the customers. So ultimately, it is the people, the consumers, they are the one who are paying money, the tax, and that is reaching to the government. So we know when we buy diesel and petrol these days, the price is so high, and because government is going on increasing the tax, therefore the price is increasing. And who is paying the tax? These are common people who are buying diesel and petrol or LPG. They are the ones paying tax. So the money is reaching to the government, and government is using all that money is supposed to use for developmental works for the country in order to bring. So you know what is happening in around our country. And so modern day government spends on a whole range of activities. So government these days, government is supposed to have development as their main agenda. And therefore, the money that they collect, they are supposed to spend for maximum development all around, not just concentrate on one area or one sector alone, but they are supposed to concentrate in many areas of development. Where there is no irrigation, government should provide irrigation. Where there is no electricity, government should provide electricity. Or some places there is no bridge over the river, the government should make bridge. Some places a road is horrible, just like our roads, the government should make good road. So it is not at the government's expense, it is the money of the people. We are paying money through taxes to different ways. And if government is not doing it, then the money we are wasting. Government is wasting our money. They may be spending for some other purpose. So as a responsible citizen, we should be aware that it is our right, because government is not giving us anything free. We are paying money to the government, and government is supposed to make use that money for our well-being, for our development. That should be the purpose. But unfortunately, it is not taking place in our country. Then let us see in detail about the activities of these two sectors, public sector and private sector. So there are several things needed by the society as a whole, out of which the private sector will not provide at a reasonable cost. So as I said in the beginning, the main purpose of this private sector companies is not meant for helping the people. Their main purpose is to get profit. So we can see in the newspaper and so, or in the news, that big business people like Adani, Ambani and so, their yearly income is increasing by millions, not by lakhs, but by millions. Comparing to last year's profit, this year they have got several millions more. So year by year their profits are increasing by millions. So they are always aiming at how much more profit I can make, or how much maximum I can get the profit. That is what their intention. Therefore, they are not willing to do the works that are not going to give them profit. They will always take up the work that is needed for them, that will provide them more fun and so on. And also some of the works needs very big amount and they may not be able to spend that. So crores of rupees or crores of rupees amount will be required for some works, some of the developmental works. So private people may not be able to do it, and if they do also, they will be charging too high from the people, and the poor people cannot afford that. So in order to help every person, especially those who are poor, the government is coming to their help by setting up different organizations or different sectors in this public sector, and so that it will serve the public, it will serve the poor at a cheap rate and so on. So government collect taxes from the people, thousands of people, lakhs of people, and try to introduce different developmental programs. But for private people it is not easy. If they go around say, give me tax, I will make road for you, bridge for you, people are not going to believe. If they have money, they have to make on their own. Afterwards they will be charging the people. But before that they cannot ask the people to give money. But government is collecting taxes from the people, from all the items that we buy. It is all, we are paying extra tax is there. So with that money government is supposed to make. So for example, making roads, bridges, railways, harbors. Harbor means where the ship is coming near to the land. So that place has to be nicely developed, otherwise it can make accident and ship will get sunk in the sand and so on, stuck in the sand. So in order to avoid all that, the harbor should be very broad, it should be nicely built, because things are to be taken out from the ship and things are to be loaded again into the ship. So all those things are under government care. Then producing electricity, then providing irrigation through dams. All these are government sector works. It is the duty of the government to take up all these important tasks and do it well, so that all the people in the country can benefit from it. Then government have to undertake such a heavy spending. All this, creating dams, creating harbors, railways, roads, all these are very expensive works, and therefore it has to be done by the government, not by the private people. Suppose the private people are given contract to make the road, what will happen? They will make the road, and they will be charging all the vehicle passing through that way. They will take road tax, 100 rupees, 200 rupees. So that way they will get back the money that they have spent. But now we are free to move because it is made by the government, and government is getting money from the people already. So with the people's money, government is making the road. Therefore there is no need of collecting tax again. So that is the difference. If the private people do everything, we will have to pay a lot of money to them. Then there are some activities which the government has to support. So there are some activities are there where the government has to give support. For example, the private sector may not continue their production or business unless government encourages it. So government also may have certain limits, and government will may contact some private people who are very rich, like Tata, Reliance and so on. So government will say, there is a work to be done, can you do it? We will give you support. So that way the government will contact certain private people, private companies, and make them to do that work with the government support. For example, selling electricity at the cost of generation may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries, and many units, especially small scale units, might have to shut down. For example, if government is asking to the private sector, you produce electricity and distribute to the people, then what will happen? Their main purpose is to produce more profit. So they will increase the rate of the electricity. Everybody will have to pay very high rate for electricity, and that will affect the poor people. And there are many factories are there depending on this electricity. So they cannot pay very high amount of electricity bill and run their business. It will be on a loss for them. Therefore, they will say, I shall close down my factory, I shall not produce, it is a loss for me. So such kind of things will happen if the government is completely giving certain works to the government. And so, government has to take care the production of electricity by building dams and setting up all the equipments and produce electricity and distribute to the people all over the country with a less rate. So if the government is charging full, then it will be a burden for the people. So government will reduce the price and distribute to the people at a nominal, at a cheap rate. Otherwise, all the people in the country will not be able to get the benefit of electricity. They will be unable to pay the cost. Then, so government is doing all these things and distributing cheaply in order to help the people of India. Then similarly, government is, we know, we have already said before, government is running ration shops or PDS, public distribution system. So how do the government get this wheat, this grain, all that? Government is buying from the people, giving them a good price. Afterwards, government is distributing to the poor people for a cheap rate. So, suppose the government is buying from the people, from the farmers for 20 rupees per kg rice. Then afterwards, government will give to the poor people for 5 rupees per kg or 10 rupees per kg. So, government is losing, is it not? They are buying from the farmers for 20 rupees and giving to the farmers, poor people for 10 rupees. So that 10 rupees government is losing. Then other expenses are also there, transportation, all that. So government is bearing that extra expense in order to help the people. Suppose government is buying for 20 rupees and selling to the poor people for 25 rupees, then they will not be able to buy. It will be a burden for them because they are very poor, they don't have enough money. Therefore, government is reducing the rate and giving them for a cheap rate so that those people can benefit from it. That is the intention of the government. So, in that way, government is helping the farmers also, while helping the poor people also. How does the government help the poor people? By giving them at a cheap rate. Then how is the government helping the farmers? Government is giving them good price and buying it from the farmers. So if government is not buying, then farmers will be keeping all their grain there, nobody will be buying, or if they go and sell in the shop, they may not give them good price. So government is coming forward to help the farmers from one side and distributing to the poor people, and that way helping the poor people also. Then there are a large number of activities which are primarily responsible for the government. So we said there are so many emergency works are there, important works are there in our country which can be done only by the government. So the private people do it means they will be charging too high and people will be suffering. So government is taking initiative and doing it so that it can help the people at a cheap rate and bring the development in the country. So for example, let us say some of the other important things that are taken up by the government, compulsorily taken up by the government. That is, one thing is health, providing health and education. So it is the responsibility of the government to build hospitals, to appoint doctors, nurses, attendants and so on, and also to build up schools and appoint the teachers to provide elementary education for the people. So health, of course there are a lot of private hospitals are there, private schools are there, but it is the duty of the government to set up hospitals and schools in order to provide good health and education to the people. Then running of schools and providing quality education is the duty of the government. So it is the duty of the government because it is written in the constitution that a child has got the right to get elementary education up to the age of 14. So government make the rule, but if the government is not providing schools, then how can the children go and learn? From where can they go and learn? So it is a duty, responsibility of the government to make sure that every child has got a chance to go to school, to get educated and so on. Then and another thing we find that in India, lot of children, half of the children are malnourished. So if we take the total children of India, half of them are malnourished. Malnourished means not with proper food. They don't have enough food to eat, and their health is so weak. And quarter of them are critically ill. That means 50% of the children are malnourished or undernourished. Then 25% of them are critically ill. They are very seriously sick because of this malnourishment. They don't have good health and they are falling into sick. So they are really struggling. So that is a very pathetic situation in our country. So we say all these helps are there, hospitals are there, schools are there, and the government is providing food through ration shops, PDS and so on. But in spite of all this, we see the half of the children are malnourished. So if they are malnourished, we can imagine how can they go to school. A person who does not have sufficient food or sufficient health, we cannot expect them to go to school and study. So they will be sitting at home all the time, getting sick, and when they get sick also no money to go to hospital, and nearby government hospital there may not be doctor, there may not be medicine, all that. So a lot of problems are there. Then we find the infant mortality rate in Odisha is 52. That means if you go to Odisha state alone, out of 1000 children are born, 52 of them are dying. That is very high. So out of 1000 children die every year, 52 children are dying. So that is very high. Or if you go to Madhya Pradesh, it is still high. In Madhya Pradesh, out of 1000 children born, 55 of them are dying. It is because of malnutrition and lack of health, lack of medicine and so on. So we talk about development all the time. At the same time, the children in our country are suffering. They have no good health, they have no good future because of poverty of their parents and their region and so on. So we can say in some of the countries in the world are very poor, like African countries and so, they are said to be very poor. But some of the states in India like Bihar, Madhya Pradesh and so on, Odisha and so on, they are more poorer than those countries in African side. So we say we are developing, we say we are growing up, but certain sections of our country, certain areas of our country, the people are really struggling, they are really suffering. They don't have even enough food to eat, they don't have medicine, they don't have school, they don't have hospital and so on. So they are really struggling. So government needs to be aware about all these things and need to do something. Otherwise they will come to the people only at the time of election and the people continue to suffer. They lack everything. So it is a duty and responsibility of the government to provide them good food and good and safe drinking water. Then should have good house, should have food with proper nutrition and so on. All these things are essential for the people. What are they? Good food, nutritious food, good health, then good water. Very often they are drinking dirty water, especially when there is water scarcity. In the month of October, November, December and so water scarcity is there, or April, May there is water scarcity. So even the dirty water that they get, they have to drink because good water is not available. So it is a duty of the government to provide water supply, good water supply, drinking water supply. So if the government is not doing, then people will suffer and their health will become worse. They will get deteriorated day by day. And it is also the duty of the government to take care of the poorest and the most ignored regions of the country and increase the spending on them. So very often the government likes to do things in the cities to get developed. So people who are living in the city, they get more benefit from the people, from the government. So it is a duty or responsibility of the government to realize that some areas of the country are neglected. The people living in that place are neglected, and therefore they need to spend more money in the place where it is not developed. If there is no road, government should make road for them. If there is no electricity, they should make road for them, electricity for them. If there is no phone facility, make phone facility for them, and other things. So instead of concentrating in the town alone, instead of giving them more and more facility, government should make sure that development is all around the country. So while some places people are getting more benefits, some other places in our country people are struggling more. So that should not happen. Development should be all around. Every person of the country should receive that benefits of development, because everyone is paying tax, everyone is a citizen of this country, and everyone has got the right to receive the benefits of the government, benefits of the development of the country. So no one should be ignored. So we come to the end of this lesson, and let us sum up so far what we have studied. Let us see the conclusion. So we said we can divide the activities of the country based on the nature of their production. For example, we say primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector. Primary sector means the sector that is work is done on the land. The secondary sector means the work is done in the factories, producing, small scale industry, large scale industry, all that is whatever is produced, that is secondary sector. Then there are a lot of sectors are there providing services, post office, banks, other offices, the cobbler, the sellers, the shopkeepers, the transport, they are all working in the tertiary sector. They are providing service. So based on the nature of their activity, we can say there are primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Then we can say that it is the tertiary sector that is providing more economic growth or economic production, we can say, service production, providing more GDP. So in the primary sector more people are working but their income is less, GDP is less. But the tertiary sector less people are working but they are providing more GDP. This is because people who are working in the tertiary sector, they have got high income, high salary, while people who are working in the primary sector, they have low salary. Then we can say that depending on the employment opportunity, we can divide all the works into two: organized sector and unorganized sector. So people who are working in the small factory, people who are working as a daily laborers, they are all working in the unorganized sector, and they don't have much benefit. They are working from hand to mouth. There is no savings for them, just sufficient, just bare sufficient for them to survive. Or some of them even don't have enough work, because they get work only in certain season, and therefore they are also suffering. But there are people who are working in the organized sector, people who are working in the offices and so on. So they are well-to-do people. Their life is settled and they have everything that they need. Even they have extra money. So they are called people who are working in the organized sector. Then we can divide maybe another way based on the ownership. We say people or the organizations or the establishments that is owned by the government. If the government is owner, then we call it a public sector, and if the owner is the private, then we call it private sector, and so on. And we find most of the important things that are carried out in our country, most of the areas where the development is carried out, that is done by the public sector, because the government has got more money collecting from the people as a tax, and therefore they invest that money for the development of the country, for the development of the people. So we wind up here, and the next class we shall see the exercises and so on. So thank you for listening. Have a nice day.